The rates and ravings reviews for April 2021. Sorry, I fell asleep during hour 3 of Justice League. If you've been on the internet the past few years, you've probably seen some of the fuss surrounding this whole thing. Originally, Zack Snyder was going to direct Justice League a few years ago, but then due to the tragedy of the suicide of his daughter, he had to step away, leaving it to Joss Whedon. That version was total garbage. Everyone basically agrees on that. It's extremely inconsistent, poorly written, just bad. It's a very bad movie, one of the worst in the DCEU. It was so bad that there was a campaign both from fans and people involved in the movie to let Zack Snyder come back and make his own version of the movie and basically let him finish with his actual vision. I think the best thing I can say about this whole project is that I think it's cool that it happened. I am really happy for Zack Snyder being able to come back and finish something that was interrupted by a horrible circumstance in his personal life. That said, I have no idea how to feel about this thing. It's way too long. It's filled with some really good stuff and some really bad stuff, and it's too much to be one thing or the other consistently. It's better than the original version, but again, the better parts are nearly outweighed by just all the nonsense filler Zack Snyder stuff. I think somewhere in this whole thing there is a decent movie, probably like when Zack Snyder was originally working on it and had certain plans laid out with less studio interference and a better editor to make it all tighter. I think we probably could have had a pretty good superhero movie on our hands, albeit with still a really bad villain. And for the amount that I'm going to complain about the length of this movie, the more I thought about it, if Avengers Endgame was 4 hours, I totally would have watched it because I have faith in that team and the directors and the characters to be well written. There's so many building blocks that the DCU hasn't laid out that the MCU has, and because of that, a huge, massive film like this just doesn't work. Let's start with the visuals and basically the one thing that everyone has made fun of at this point, the 4:3 aspect ratio. Why? Why is it in 4:3? The whole director's vision thing is hilarious. It just doesn't need to be framed like this. I think that some of the shots do make use of it pretty well and, cut out a lot of the extra stuff and just show some really nice condensed visuals. But there's a lot of shots and certain camera moves and choices that do not look good. There's a lot of really choppy editing at the beginning, like the first appearance of Wonder Woman was really silly for me with all the speed ramps and then the slow-mo. It was really jarring. And then some of the CGI is okay actually compared to normal DCEU standards. Like, there is some pretty nice looking stuff, especially towards the end, but there's also a lot of jank in here, especially with Cyborg throughout the whole movie. Like, on some of the shots you really feel all the money that was going in, whether or not the character design is actually interesting, but then for Cyborg they spent a whole $2 on him, I guess. Especially his hand at the very end is bad, and there's way too much stuff with the Flash that's the super slow-mo Quicksilver thing. Ever since that scene in Days of Future Past, Quicksilver has just ruined the presentation of a lot of super speed because they all do the same thing. This one even tries to play a song during it, except for this song is way worse than Time in a Bottle. There were some really nice shots that nailed the feel of the heroes, especially with Batman and Flash. The huge team shot, their kind of Ultron shot, is really cool. And I think that when Clark is on the farm, the opening shot of that looking out the door or the window, whatever, is a pretty nice shot. A couple audio complaints. I mentioned the song with Flash, and for the first quarter of the movie, there was some really bad music choices. It was like this really, thoughtful indie kind of stuff, and it just didn't match the feel of the movie at all. I think this is kind of just a Zack Snyder thing again, but man, there were some rough songs in here. Even more annoying, however, is the new audio cue for Wonder Woman. It is so annoying. Why do they keep playing this thing? It's literally every time she appears in her full getup, they blast that vocal cue, and it's like, I love her theme. I do think that it can be a little bit jarring sometimes just because it is so intense, but it's a great theme, like it's a banger. But adding that vocal thing before it was so annoying. To try to run through the characters quickly, just like this movie does, I do think that this team feels good. In general, I think the conversations that the team has when they're being a team and trying to make a plan and each adding their own views and thoughts into things is actually way better than the original Justice League and Whedon's really lame writing. For Wonder Woman, some of her stuff was good, like her conversation with Alfred and the way she talks to Superman when he's first back and doesn't know what's going on was way better than original Justice League. But she also has a lot of dialogue that, like when she just says boring to the one henchman, like it just felt a little too modern for me. I know she's been around for a while now in society, but it was a little bit too modern. I think Batman's arc was a lot clearer in this one. I think there's some elements of him not knowing how to work as a team, or maybe having a lot of guilt and just being super self-destructive about what happened with Robin, that I think plays off well with the rest of the team. There's still some stuff that is not great though, like he has the MCU problem where he just immediately tells everyone his secret identity. I don't get that at all. Flash was by far my least favorite character in the original cut. He was just so annoying. I think he literally 100% of his dialogue pissed me off in the original cut. This time it was maybe more like 50%, and that was mostly in the beginning of the movie. The first half of the movie, Flash is still pretty unbearable, but I think that's just what they want the character to be and Ezra Miller as an actor. But throughout the movie, I was getting annoyed by him a lot less, way less than the Whedon cut. Joss Whedon writing this version of Flash was pure poison. Cyborg is way better in this one because he actually has some stuff to do. They touch on some interesting elements with him, but he's still not the character that I really want to watch. Aquaman is still a stupid dickhead, but I guess that's just how they want his character in this to be anyway. At the very least, he's consistent, not like the Whedon cut where they basically try to make him a bro like Ragnarok Thor. And Superman's return to the team is pretty good in this. I honestly did like some of the lighter jokes that he was making in the original cut, just because I do want to see that Superman a little bit more. But I thought they struck a pretty decent middle ground of making him sweet and lighthearted, but not being cringy. The only other character that I want to talk about is Steppenwolf, because he sucks. He's a terrible character, terrible villain, terrible design. The actor just does absolutely nothing with him vocally. It just 100% bad villain. I hate the new armor that's constantly moving and shifting all the tiny little parts. It's so noisy and distracting. Just such a garbage character, and they added even more boring villains in this version. So good job, gang. The main thing I want to talk about now is the structure and the cuts that I would make to this movie. I think there is a decent 2-hour movie in this, but again, to come back to it, 4 hours is too long. Splitting it into parts didn't really help at all, because the parts didn't feel that cohesive to me, especially the first 2 or 3 parts I felt were really messy and poorly paced. Any of the big fights in fields are just really lame, and the Amazon fight is still way too long. The flashback fight is a little bit better in this version, but it presents so many questions that just, it's stuff that doesn't make sense. Like, I still have no idea what the mother boxes are. They're still basically the Allspark to me. And then why did he forget the anti-life equation? Also, what is the anti-life? There's just so much stupid comic booky stuff. It's not even fair to say comic booky, because I feel like comic books probably explain this crap better than Zack Snyder does. This movie has a really bad habit of showing something that makes absolutely no sense and then explaining it in a really boring way 3 minutes later. That happened with the anti-life equation. Like, they pointed out that it's on the ground, and then like 4 minutes later they're hologram whatever talking, and he goes through this whole thing about it. That also happened with Cyborg's dad sacrificing himself, and it was like, why did he do that? He didn't do anything, and then they explained why he did 3 minutes later. Lots of weird stuff like that where it's just like poorly structured. Overall, the action scenes were the highlights of the movie for me. A lot of them were pretty well done and pretty engaging. Visually, I really like the rewind scene when they're too late at the very end and he saves the day. I think the music and the visuals there was really, really good. And I do still love when Superman shows up and is fighting the other members of the Justice League, and Flash is going towards him and he just makes eye contact and slowly catches up to him. I still think that scene is great. And then we get to the epilogue, and it's garbage, and basically it nearly ruins all of the goodwill they had from the decent action that was leading up to it. The epilogue is so stupid. The smash cut to the Apocalypse Vision Dream timeline thing. Jared Leto is terrible. Amber Heard is terrible. Her accent sucks. It's so unnecessary. The last 20 minutes of the movie could have easily been cut, or it condensed maybe you could have one post-credit scene or something like that, but it nearly ruins everything. I think there's a lot of beats that carry over from the original Justice League that are done better overall in this version. The problem is, as I kind of said earlier, Zack Snyder doesn't know how to make movies, or at least good movies. For what cuts I would make, I would absolutely cut some of the stuff with Aquaman. The people singing when he goes into the ocean or whatever is just baffling, and also when it cuts to him randomly just kind of saving somebody, it feels like we just need to be reminded that he's there. He also has too much stuff alluding to his solo movie, like either cut the Willem Dafoe scene or cut the Amber Heard scene. Actually, just cut the Amber Heard scene, and I feel like it would go absolutely fine. Cut some of the Amazon fight out because it's just way too long, or at least speed it up. You don't need everything to be slow-mo, Zack Snyder. Either cut or replace the Ma Kent and Lois stuff. Cut the whole, spoiler, Martian Manhunter thing. If he's gonna show up, just have him show up at the very end. Because that was just very confusing and weird. The problem is that the Lois and Ma Kent stuff I'm okay with because it does keep Superman relevant, and I like the way that Lois is involved when he first comes back way more than Bruce, like, calling her in and getting Alfred to Uber her over. Like, I do think organically showing that she's been coming to the memorial, she's having a hard time moving on, and then, you know, this is the last day she's going to show up and that kind of thing. I do think that you can have that scene and make it make sense, but it was so early in the movie that it was basically irrelevant. Like, maybe open the part where Superman comes back with that scene and cut Ma Kent selling the farm, because that it didn't really matter for anything. And then I think that would make it better. And yeah, Martian Manhunter was a cool surprise. Like, I forgot that he was a thing. But he really didn't need to be in this movie. I think originally it was supposed to be Green Lantern at the end. Someone showing up at the very end I think would have been cool. Especially in the middle of the movie, Martian Manhunter was not needed. And I don't know if he needed to be in this movie at all. And then cut out all the extra scenes of Steppenwolf, because again, he's extremely boring. They gave him the new character, Dasani or whatever, to talk to and converse with him in Darkseid. Or Darkseid, whatever. And those scenes are bad. Cut them. Finally, I think that Zack Snyder is like a big video game fan, because there's just so much video gamey influence in this movie and a lot of his stuff. It surprises me that he hasn't done a just straight up video game movie. I know that Sucker Punch has elements of that, but like an actual video game property, because so much feels like Halo or Tomb Raider or God of War or XCOM 2. A lot of this weirdly feels like XCOM 2. Like, when they leave for the final fight, it straight up feels like they are just starting a new mission in XCOM. It's wild. It's not a good movie, but it's better, and there's some elements that are good. It just needs a better editor. There needs to be someone to rein Zack Snyder in that isn't a studio, because the studio has no idea what they're doing either. He has good visual concepts, or like ways that certain characters should work in a scene, but you need somebody there to stop him from putting stupid music in there and stop using slow-mo and write characters that make sense. So this movie is really hard for me to rate. Again, there's a good movie in here, but there's a really bad movie in here as well. So I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10, I guess. It's just... This is gonna sound really silly, but I had no intention of watching the Snyder Cut originally, so when I did, it was with a free trial that a friend had, and that's how I was able to watch it. But Godzilla vs. Kong was the movie that actually made me get HBO Max and spend my real money to watch a gorilla fight a giant lizard. I grew up with both King Kong and Godzilla movies. Destroy All Monsters was one of my favorites as a kid. And the new movies, at least the Godzilla ones, have a lot of elements that I really like in them. So I was looking forward to this movie, and it was okay. It might be the worst of the new legendary MonsterVerse movies. Maybe that goes to Skull Island. It's a pretty substanceless movie. And I'm gonna put a disclaimer right there, because I know it's supposed to be substanceless. I'm not somebody who's like, the characters are underdeveloped and the themes, da da da. Like, I don't care about that. I know that it's big monkey fights big lizard. I'm a fan of these kinds of movies, so I understand that entirely. But I think even as that, it doesn't work that well. I don't really like how they handled Kong and Godzilla. That might just be my personal preference, but I really didn't like the more humanized King Kong. Like, it was okay, that they had the little girl who was able to talk to him through sign language, because I do think that that representation of sign language consistently was really nice. But they just made him so like emotional and too human. There's just a lot of stuff like that I didn't like. And then Godzilla, I thought that they would give Godzilla a reason to be attacking the monsters and just kind of on a rampage, because usually Godzilla is like this kind of natural balance that only shows up when something needs to be fixed. But he's just an asshole. Like, I thought towards the end when he showed up because he was sensing Mechagodzilla. Like, all along he had felt this going on in the world and wasn't sure where it was and knew that this thing had to be destroyed. But no, he was looking for Kong in Hollow Earth for some reason. So that means he was just straight up killing, I guess, all the other monsters, which sucks because I love the other monsters in this universe. Like I said, Destroy All Monsters, which was an old Godzilla movie, it had like all the monsters going on in it. And that's what I really loved about it. I loved seeing all of these different creatures. So if it's implied in the really cheesy March Madness bracket in the beginning of the movie for some reason that Godzilla has been taking all these other monsters out, then I don't care about this universe anymore, because that's a huge draw of it for me. As I alluded to, the characters in this are bad, but in a way that I expected, so it's only certain aspects of it bothered me. But at the very least, they weren't as cringy as some of the lines in King of the Monsters. There's some pretty rough dialogue in that. The little girl signing is nice, like I said. I was happy to see Julian Dennison again. He's pretty enjoyable. But I do absolutely hate the conspiracy character. I cannot express how much I hate, especially right now with where we are in the world, that the conspiracy theorist lunatic who showers in bleach was proven 100% right. And I really don't like that Mechagodzilla just kind of short circuits. Like, I was happy to see Mechagodzilla in general. I fully expected it going in, but I thought that Mechagodzilla would be the Godzilla that has been attacking everything. And that's like kind of the twist of it, because when Godzilla first showed up to fight Kong, the theme that they played sounded like the Godzilla theme, but it wasn't quite there. So I was like, ooh, that's intentional. Like, this isn't the real Godzilla. But no, they just didn't get the rights, I guess. Anyway, Mechagodzilla's there, which I'm fine with in principle. Some of the fighting was really cool. I think the design is decent. But then they don't lose control because of, bad AI and like the hubris of the creators. They don't lose control because it's like Ghidorah still existing, like its consciousness is in there somehow and it's some weird alien thing that needs to be destroyed. No, it's short circuits because they pour alcohol in the console. Come on. I just don't think this movie was what I wanted. Like, the fighting, which is what everyone came for, was good. There were some really cool moments, but it didn't really feel like it fit into the rest of the world. Like, it didn't fit into the other movies. Same goes for the music. A big part of that is the design and all the science stuff, all of the Hollow Earth and the weird gravity stuff and the ships, and all of it just makes no sense. And this is what, like a couple years in the future? Yeah, it takes place like 4 years from now. And why is everything like neon and Blade Runner? I know that we're not far from that, but still. Oh, the axe too. The axe, anything that was related to the Hollow Earth. There was some fun shots and ideas in it, but it was just so stupid and pulled me out of this universe entirely. Leading up to this, I watched Godzilla and King of the Monsters again. I didn't watch Skull Island because I didn't remember caring about it, but those other movies are so much better than this one, honestly. Godzilla 2014 is straight up a really, really good movie. I didn't realize before it was the director of Rogue One, which you totally feel once you know that, but that movie is great. It's shot well, tons of great music. The usage of Godzilla and the Mutos is really nice. The way they frame the action, I just really like that movie on the whole. And then for King of the Monsters, there's a lot of really bad dialogue. It's too long, but it has that Destroy All Monsters element where you get to see Rodan and Ghidorah and Mothra, and that part of the movie was really good, and the music there slapped so hard because they used the old themes. Like, you have to slog through a lot of stupid stuff and the whole Millie Bobby Brown side plot to get to the really cool stuff, but then the music kicks in and it's like... And then Rodan is like... But then Mothra is like... There's just so much cool stuff in both Godzilla and King of the Monsters that Godzilla vs. Kong lacks entirely. It's not that entertaining as a movie, and I'm not invested in it at all as a modern kaiju movie. So Godzilla vs. Kong gets a 5 out of 10 as well. To wrap it up as usual with the side notes, just 2 days ago I finished Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I really enjoyed it, and I do want to talk about it, but I didn't have time to get my thoughts together for this episode, so that will be the main thing for the next one. I said that I might talk more about PlayStation and Astro's Playroom in the future. I haven't had the chance to really play anything yet, so I'll talk about Astro's Playroom right now. I thought it was a really neat tech demo. As someone who really was never invested in PlayStation, I didn't get a lot of the references and stuff, but I still do really appreciate that it was there. It made me kind of feel like I was being welcomed and stepping into this new area of gaming that I hadn't been before. The main thing that I was hoping for going into it was that it would do some really cool stuff with the controller, and it did. I really hope that developers actually use all of the elements of this controller for gameplay, especially the triggers. Like, there's just so much cool stuff that this controller can do. The levels were pretty well designed. Nothing Mario level, like I don't want to go back and play them again, but there's some really cool ideas here, lots of fun stuff, and the music is really good. The one theme that it might be the main theme, or it's just when you're in the like kind of library area, it's a really good song, even though it straight up rips off Starlight from Muse. And I know that much has already been said about it already, but the theme for the jungle GPU level is like a total bop. Like it goes so hard. That song was stuck in my head for weeks. So yeah, really good game, and I mean, it comes free with the PlayStation, so if you can get your hands on one, totally play it. It was really enjoyable. Pac-Man 99 also came out this month, which took up a decent chunk of my time. It didn't hook me the way the Tetris 99 did, which I finally won Invictus, thank God. But it's really fun. I wish there was a much clearer communication of the rules and the strategies that you can use in the game, because for the first couple days I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. But I've won a handful of times, which means I don't really keep coming back to it. But it's fun, it's a cool idea, and I hope they keep doing this kind of thing. There's also Monster Hunter Rise. I've gotten to play it a little bit, but not nearly enough to talk about it yet. I am enjoying it a lot. I think it's a great addition to the series from what I know of it. And I would like to continue playing it and talk about it at some point, but not right now. There's also the Ancient Gods DLC, number 1 and 2 for Doom Eternal. I completely forgot that existed. Honestly, I just haven't had time to play it. I haven't even gotten it. So I would like to get that and complete it for the next episode. Whether or not I'll have time to do that, we'll see. And finally, I also got Ask Iwata, the new book that features a lot of his writings throughout his life, as well as reflections on him as a person from people like Shigeru Miyamoto and Shigesaki Itoi. I'm nearly done at this point. I've been skimming it off and on. It's really enjoyable. I really respect who Satoru Iwata was, and a lot of what he says is really insightful and interesting, and he's also just a funny and nice person. If you're at all interested in game design or the way that Nintendo works as a company or him as a person, I would absolutely check it out. It's a very light read and it's very enjoyable. So that will do it for this episode. Let me know what you thought about the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League and Godzilla vs. Kong. Let me know if there's anything that you'd specifically want to see me talk about next time besides Falcon and the Winter Soldier and maybe Ancient Gods. I have a bunch of stuff on the burner right now. I'm not sure what's going to come out in what order. I might wind up being delayed a week coming up just because I have a lot of stuff going on. But either way, if you'd like to see all that stuff, be sure to subscribe, like this video to help other people see it, and as always, thanks for watching.